Conceive it, believe it, achieve it. We are on episode number 3 of the professionalism of collegiate music recruiting, and we're going to be talking to our expert, Dr. Stephen Moore.
Hi, Clark.
Well, howdy, Dr. Moore. What you working on?
Well, I'm working on the recruiting goals for this fall.
Well, that's pretty awesome because that's what this episode is all about, goal setting. So tell us your insights here. What is the most important thing about setting a goal?
Really just deciding what you want. What would be the optimum number of students in the various categories. That's really where you begin.
Makes sense. Conceive it, believe it, achieve it.
Right.
But I've got my iPad here and I really want to take notes because this is important stuff, people. So can we go somewhere that's maybe a little less distracting?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Okay. All right, Dr. Moore, I'm ready. I've got my iPad out. I'm ready to take my notes. Even right here at the top, it says believe it, conceive it, achieve it. And I have a couple questions and everything, so let's jump right in.
Great, Clark. Actually, it's the C.B.A's of success. Conceive it, believe it, achieve it, because you want to set your goals first.
Gotcha, okay. So with a music school, what traditionally has driven a school?
Well, normally they're going to be driven by their goals in terms of their majors or programs, and by the instruments or their voice. Now, sometimes you can set goals by other things like ethnicity or race or gender, but the primary drivers are going to be programs and instrumentation.
Gotcha. So if a school wants to have an orchestra, what are the specific needs of that school?
Well, exactly. Once you decide you have an orchestra, then you have to have the right amount of violins and violas and cellos and double basses, and then, of course, the woodwinds, brass, percussion, and all in the proportionate numbers.
Okay, makes sense. So what about jazz ensembles?
Well, it's exactly true. Whether it's bands or orchestras or choirs or jazz ensembles, they all have a balanced instrumentation need that you're going to be looking at. And sometimes this moves not just into the ensembles, but also into the curriculum. So, for instance, when you teach jazz, you're going to have combos, and they're going to have a drum set and a bass player, piano, melody instruments, things like that. So, to have it balanced, it's really important for your curriculum as well as for the ensembles.
So are big bands still important collegiate programs?
Yes, absolutely. They're very important. You have combo work and you have the big bands and the jazz. And all the ensembles are still very important in music schools around the country. Now, I will say, though, there are other programs that have built around more of a chamber music ensemble approach, so less important for instrumentation. And then, the new move that's coming around the schools these days, of course, is the modern artist or the popular music artist or the contemporary artist. And these are less driven by instrumentation needs. However, though, it's a little bit like jazz. You probably want a rhythm section and you probably need some balance. You don't want, all singer-songwriters and no drummers.
Right, that makes sense. So is the ensemble-driven approach changing?
Well, absolutely, and for the reason that we just talked about, and that would be that music is changing in society.
Okay, I'm ready to hop back into these notes. So can you break down instrument or vocal goals for us?
Yes, it's helpful to have a chart, so let's take a look at this. I always like the spreadsheets.
All right.
So I've created one with all of the primary instruments that you're going to need. So we want to start with the ideal number of instruments that are ready, freshmen through seniors, to populate your school.
So you're saying consider how many students are ideal for an applied studio faculty.
Yes. Yes, that's right. But a lot of other considerations go into this because, for instance, if you have a lot of music education majors and they're going to do their student teaching in the spring, then you have to allow for that if you're going to lose 50% of the students in their senior year. And then you also have to see, what is your retention rate? So if a number of students are dropping out, then you want to allow for that in your planning. And all schools have some dropout rate.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in other words, if 50% of your students are not going to be available for an ensemble in the spring of their senior year, it'll be important to allow for that in your planning.
Right. So at the very minimum, when you're looking at all your total goals, you're going to bring in at least 25% of those goals for the freshman class.
Wow, this is a lot going on.
Well, let's take a look at the chart. It'll be a lot easier to understand. I put it up here on the screen.
actually came prepared with a chart.
Well, Clark, spreadsheets can be your friend, and it's not that hard to understand. This is an example. So these are all the instruments. This is a partial list. But let's say you need flutes, saxophones, brass, strings, singer-songwriters,
Woohoo!
voice. So let's say you have 12 flutes that you know you need for your program. Those are the green goals, or 40 voices. Great singers like yourself. So that's in green, and then you track what the actual enrollment is. And so you know if you have 12 flutes that you're going to have for your total school, then you have to bring in at least 25% of those each year. So your freshman class would be at least 25% of your total goal. So you need to bring in 3 flutists.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then you track that. So now if you're doing the whole planning, you're going to look at how many you want to bring in. That's matriculation. How many do you want to admit? So if typically you're getting a 40% yield, you know you want to bring in 3, you should probably admit around 8.
Okay.
And then you know that you're not going to admit every single person that applies if you have an application and audition process. So you look at your historical yield. We're just using a 50%, so it's easy to do the math. So let's say you know you want to admit 8 students, and you should probably have 15 or 16 applicants.
Okay.
And that's basically the chart. You know, you're looking for how many you have for a total goal, how many you want to bring in each year in each instrument or voice, how many you need to admit in order to achieve that goal, and then of course how many that you want to recruit to apply to your school.
So you gotta believe it, conceive it, achieve it, right?
Well, you do have to believe it, but you want to set your goals first. So I'm going to go with conceive it, believe it, achieve it.
Oh, right. Dang. So with your chart, those goals looked fantastic, but oh my gosh, how can anybody meet any standard like that?
Well, they're just goals. And you're not going to hit them exactly, especially by instrument. Your overall goal, you'll probably get close to. But each instrument, 1 or 2 person swing can really change things. So, and you know what else? Sometimes there's just a few more students that come in who are really great on a particular instrument or great singers, and you know what? You get them when you can, because next year it may swing a different way.
You were talking about goals, and how many students are ideal? Like, what's a realistic enrollment goal for a music program?
Right, well, of course, that changes by school, and there's a lot of factors. We talked about the ensembles, we talked about the studios, but of course, the faculty loads. How many students can each faculty member teach? The classroom sizes, the number of practice rooms. And I can tell you right now, there's never going to be enough.
No, never.
And then what financial resources do you have? They all play a role in setting the goals.
Oh, gotcha. So having more students is going to require additional instructional costs.
Right. It can cause scheduling problems as well. Oh. So there's a lot of factors, and you want to be the right size.
Dr. Moore, do music programs primarily focus on performance majors, or are there other majors in music schools besides performance?
Right, well, performance, of course, is very important in music schools, but not all schools need to focus on that. There are 3 major degrees in music that you're going to be looking at, and one is Bachelor of Music and Performance, but there's also professional degrees in a lot of different areas, and then Bachelor of Arts degrees that may take you on to other graduate school possibilities. The Bachelor of Music degrees, they could include a lot of different areas of music therapy, music engineering, music business, composition, the list goes on, because there's a lot of opportunity in music. One of these things you're going to do too is create a plan for each one of those programs and majors, like we did for the instruments and voice. And guess what, Clark?
What?
I've got a chart for that.
Oh, of course you have a chart. I think we've had enough charts for now, so let's let this be the end of session 3. But for now, let's go get some Starbucks.
Good idea, Clark. And there's 2 Starbucks on campus, and one of them is conveniently located right next to the School of Music. Let's go.
All right.